What's good, YouTube? Justin Righteous is here, back with another reaction video. We have why nations lose sleep over SpaceX. Okay, I've been loving the love and support that I've been getting in my videos. It honestly makes me so happy. Like, I'm happy to be here right now. I'm happy to be here right now talking to y'all. Okay. So keep commenting on those YouTube videos. I love to hear what y'all think. I love to have conversations with y'all. This is the reason I'm doing this. This is literally the reason I'm doing this. It's to talk to you guys, right? I want to hear what y'all have to say, and I want y'all to hear what I have to say. Okay, so let's get straight into the video. This is only the beginning, by the way. This is literally only the beginning. Okay, there's no end in sight. So let's get straight into the video. Let's talk about SpaceX and how they're changing humanity forever.
Well, before we saw a rocket land itself, there was all of this. That was a race just to get into space, to say we've been to space. The new race underway today isn't just to touch space, it's to occupy space. The best.
Let me know in the comments below, do you believe in the moon landing or not? Do you believe in it or not? Because if you don't believe in it, I think you have reasons to not believe in it. If you do believe in it, you also have reasons to believe in it. Personally, I believe in the moon landing. I think it's only beneficial to believe in it. It's only beneficial to actually believe it was real so that we can do it again and again and again and become a multi-planetary species. Like, wouldn't that be cool? We all see the movies, Star Wars, Star Trek. Elon Musk is the only one actually trying to make that happen. You know what I mean?
Most valuable areas of space, and SpaceX is the only reason this race is on, having solved the biggest problem from the first space race. For the first time in human history, something humans made had left the planet. If someone looked up at the right time, they could watch it streak across the sky. It was an eerie feeling for most people, unnerving. Something up there was widely believed to be able to look down at Earth to see people, to hear what you were saying, and maybe even to drop bombs.
The radio signal transmitted by the Soviet Sputnik.
Off of that unnerved feeling, the world's first space race kicked off. Russia started out far in the lead, sending up Sputnik in 1957. The world's first animal
Russia?
1 month later. 1959, the Soviets landed the first man-made object on the surface of the moon.
Damn.
1961, the Soviets put the first human into orbit around Earth, Yuri Gagarin. The first American, Alan Shepard, is launched into space 1 month later. But Shepard's ride was far from the achievement of Yuri's orbit of the entire planet, coming back out of space and into the Earth's atmosphere after just 15 minutes. In direct response to this,
Yo, think about like being inside a rocket and orbiting space, like orbiting Earth, orbiting the moon. Like nothing is holding you. Just the laws of physics. You have to have ultimate trust in the laws of physics to be in that position. Physics, by the way, is what my field of study is. For those that don't know, I said in a previous video, Elon Musk is one of my biggest inspirations, if not my biggest inspirations. He's the reason I'm doing physics right now. Okay, I always kind of had a gift for physics, but I never really knew what it could bring me in life. But once I heard Elon Musk had a bachelor's in physics, that just lit the spark in me to just go full throttle.
The Soviets orbiting a man around the planet and being quite obviously ahead in space capabilities, it was made official.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things.
The finish line was announced.
Not because they are easy.
The Soviets
not
and the
because
Americans
they are
would race
easy,
to the moon.
But because they
are
So
hard.
they did. 1965, 4 years
Woo,
after orbiting
that's a
Earth,
bar.
the Soviets beat the U.S. to the first spacewalk. This was the last time the Soviets would lead the race.
Damn, they were cooking.
1968, the Americans sent Apollo 8 into orbit around the moon, producing the famous Earthrise photograph.
Yo, doesn't that just spark something in you? It's like all those video games that we played, all the movies that we watched. It's like this is the only way to like live it for real. You know what? Man, come on, let's go.
That we all know so well, and the first humans to ever see the dark side of the moon. 1 year later, at 12 years after the race began, Apollo 11 touched down on the surface of the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And then, almost as suddenly as it all began, we stopped. The race was over. The U.S. had won and space faded to the background again. We stopped not because there wasn't stuff to do in space, though with the materials we had at that point, the options were limited, but because how to keep justifying the cost.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money.
The U.S. federal budget was spent per year getting astronauts to the moon. There were protests of the cost of the space race during the whole thing, so Congress woke up once boots hit the moon and started.
I wish I was alive during that time. I was not alive during that time, so I can't really. I would have to do a lot of research to really understand the implications and why they stopped or why they were even doing it in the first place. But I did not know there were protests to stop it. Think about that for a second. That's one of the reasons why people today think it's fake.
Started asking questions. Why did we need to go to the moon again? Coming to the conclusion that we didn't. And so, for the next 40 years, relative to the pace of the race with the Soviets, activity in space plateaued and then fell. Yes, there was the Mars rover, the Mir space station, the International Space Station.
The Mars rover is on Mars right now, taking pictures and digging into the ground and taking videos. You can go on NASA's website to literally see Mars as if you were standing on Mars. It looks like Earth. It looks like a real planet. It's crazy.
Deep space probes, all interesting, all important in their own ways, but this was small bespoke stuff. It wasn't changing life on Earth, and it costs an absolute fortune, underpinned by the fact that you have to get the things you want to be in space out of the Earth's atmosphere, fighting gravity the whole way, at a cost of about $1.5 billion per launch, for launches that had to be planned years in advance so the rockets could be built just for that mission, and that came with the occasional cost of catastrophic failure. The ability to do or build anything big in space was impossible. The cost to put 1 kilogram of cargo into space actually and substantially went up after we landed on the moon. This bunch of bananas weighs about 1 kilogram. The first rocket system, Vanguard, cost nearly $1 million to put 1 kilogram into orbit in the late 50s. Saturn rockets, what was used for the majority of the Apollo program, dropped that to less than $10,000 for the moon landing. But the space shuttle was a cost disaster and pushed the cost per kilogram way back up to $61,000. These numbers are all adjusted to 2018 dollars, by the way. With a few exceptions like the Russian Soyuz system, though no one is entirely sure the exact cost of that program, $60,000 per kilogram is where it stayed until this happened.
So cost is like the main number one reason why we haven't gone to the moon again, because it costs so much money that we have to funnel the economy to space travel, right? And nowadays with social media and everything, like we would have to find a way to convince everyone to that all the money we're spending on space travel is, makes sense. And that's a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing to do when all we care about is what Beyonce doing tomorrow, or Taylor Swift, or what our favorite rapper or favorite athlete is doing, or our favorite YouTuber, streamer. We don't really care about that stuff right now. But Elon Musk is one of the select few that's really trying to inspire the youth into doing into completing scientific achievements.
3, 2, 1, 0.
We're in stage 1.
Liftoff indication. We have liftoff. SpaceX Falcon 1 launch vehicle. Falcon has cleared the tower.
Dramatically lowering the cost all the way down to $4,000 per kilogram. And then 7 years later, stunning the world by landing a rocket back on the launch pad. A moment that cemented SpaceX into public view and pushed the cost to get into space down even further, tagging $1,367 per kilogram. From that point forward, SpaceX became the preferred launch platform used to put objects into orbit for U.S. companies, nations,
the world
and
for the rest
allies.
of our lives.
This year, 90% of all payloads going to space, measured by weight, will be carried on a SpaceX rocket. 90%.
Wow.
That is an
Just
enormous
SpaceX.
competitive advantage, and it's likely that number goes up, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's come back to this for a second. This was the moment that made it realistically possible to look up in the sky and ask, What part of space do I want to occupy? Because despite its size, despite the vastness of space, the useful space around Earth, it's not as big as you might think. Just as a house on the beach is more valuable than a house 5 blocks from the beach, so is the case with the location of a satellite. The moon has just 2 areas known to have water. Early customers of these cheap rides know this, so they're asking a slightly different question. What part of space do I need to occupy? Nations, militaries, and companies around the world know from centuries of experience and conflict that if you aren't present, you don't make the rules. A very real new space race is beginning. Just look at the number of rocket launches each year since this chart bottomed back in 2005. This time, though, the race has different, much higher stakes than the one in the 1960s. To
why is
permanently
that?
occupy space.
Oh.
But where is this premium real estate? There are 3 strategic areas relevant today: low Earth orbit, geosynchronous orbit, and the moon. Low Earth orbit sits 300 to 1,000 miles above the Earth's surface. Things in this layer whip around the Earth about once every 90 minutes. High enough for one satellite to see much of the Earth's surface, but close enough to be able to capture high-resolution imagery and ensure
like
sending
GPS
a
and
signal
stuff.
back and forth is only going to take a few milliseconds. This is where Starlink lives. And being the first comer, they were able to choose the best orbital height for space-based internet. 6,000 Starlink satellites sitting in orbital height that makes it highly unlikely any other satellite constellation will sit under it, providing an interference-free line of sight for sending and receiving signals from Earth, and ensuring the time it takes to receive or send a signal from Earth is lower than any competitor. Real quick, on these signals going to and from satellites, when you hit refresh on a web page and Starlink has to send a refresh version down to your laptop, that data, that signal, has to travel on a specific radio frequency, often referred to as spectrum. Spectrum itself is not unlimited, and the amount of data that can be transmitted over any frequency is limited. For things like cell phone service, governments sell this spectrum at auction. Like in 2021, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile paid a collective $80 billion for the spectrum best suited for 5G cell service.
Wow.
In space, though, it's first come, first serve. Any orbital slot is just assigned spectrum to use along with the physical location. This process and registry is managed by the UN's International Telecommunication Union and national agencies like the US FCC. The same limitations of spectrum and signal interference hold true for up here, geosynchronous orbit.
Okay, I'll be really honest. I didn't truly understand what he was talking about, how the spectrum and there's only a limited amount of it that can. So it's almost like real estate. So it's the amount of data that can be sent by your satellite to, you know, whatever, there's a finite amount, and it's like real estate. You gotta, it's first come, first serve. Is that, I think that's what he's saying right now.
An object in this belt, 22,000 miles above Earth, it will stay over the same place on Earth. Absolutely perfect for communication networks and continuously monitoring areas of interest on Earth. Suspected missile launch sites, hurricane formation off the west coast of Africa, the Taiwan Strait, and these orbits, already limited or completely full in high-demand areas over North America, Europe, and East Asia, are only becoming more valuable as the technology to see the Earth's surface clearly from this height improves. What used to be very fuzzy images with a resolution of maybe 10 meters per pixel has been confirmed by the U.S. Space Force to now be at 2.5 meters per pixel. When in August of 2024, China put a satellite into stationary orbit just east of Taiwan that can see objects to within 2.5 meters, day, night, or even with a cloudy sky. It's enough resolution to track any military naval vessel. Bump out another 230,000 miles and we arrive at the moon, where we realize that now assembling structures and building permanent bases is becoming cost effective. There are valuable deposits of metal on the moon. It's going to be mined. There are valuable deposits of helium-3 on the moon, long sought after as the holy grail fuel for nuclear fusion. And there is water on the moon, as ice, in 2 areas. A little bit of it at the North Pole, but the vast majority of it is at the South Pole in a small area about the size of Switzerland, hidden in craters that are permanently shielded from the sun. Water, of course, can be used to support life, or it can be used for rocket fuel. Most rockets are powered by liquid oxygen, guaranteeing that the choosing of lunar base sites is going to be competitive. The first to show up and those able to transport enough equipment and people to build bases will absolutely influence how the moon is governed. The latter part of that, though, able to transfer enough equipment and people, is the key to the moon. The saying possession is 9/10 of the law is a saying for a reason. This is Starship. the upcoming workhorse of SpaceX. It has now launched, landed 3 times, and was signed as the launch vehicle for the next NASA mission to the moon, Artemis, where it will put down a lander with the crew at the moon's south pole and its water deposits.
When is that happening?
This thing can carry a payload 50% larger than that of Falcon Heavy, 100 metric tons, or about 8 Caterpillar D6 bulldozers in its first version, with a stated goal and timeline of upgrading to 200 metric tons within just a few years. And critically, bigger objects can fit in its larger payload chamber. Clunkier things that might not be heavy but can't be made smaller. Okay, so
Nice.
SpaceX has rockets that carry more cargo. They're reusable. There are many of them, particularly considering Starship is just now being put into service, meaning more are coming online. They have the only space-based internet constellation that can serve huge numbers of residential, commercial, and military customers. And 3 launch sites, more than any other provider, including the only commercial private spaceport in the world, Starbase, in Texas. This is a company that's looking increasingly similar to the...
He's talking about Starbase. I heard about like Star City or something, or I think actually not. I think that's what he's talking about. Like they're basically gonna build a city that's just for this, just to launch rockets, just to build rockets and everything. So they're going. The U.S. is going full throttle on space exploration. They are not holding back no more. Okay, and SpaceX controls 90% of rocket launches, as he just said. So tap in. If you want to know where the money is going, think Elon, think Tesla, think SpaceX, think whatever metals, earth, resources, whatever material goes into rockets, rocket fuel, all of that crazy stuff.
Dominant companies that appeared during other major technology shifts. Standard Oil during the shift from whale oil for lighting to kerosene, Microsoft for personal computers, and then of course Google search. But what is often lost in the imagery of rockets that land themselves is just how big of a military asset SpaceX capabilities are. Starlink has already proven itself as an invaluable asset to the Ukraine military.
Yeah.
Russia's typical mode of operation during war is to completely overtake communications within a war zone and spread
I'm not really a fan of war and everything. I think the concept of war doesn't make sense at all. You know, because we're all humans. Like we're all just one entity, right? But I mean, I guess I might be uneducated on war. I mean, I didn't do well in history. I did not do well in history back in high school. So I mean, I guess Starlink is, invaluable for war, which is great for the U.S. or great for military, whatever. But come on, let's focus on greater, bigger, and better things.
Propaganda. This is what they do. Starlink prevented that when they sent 1,000 receivers to Ukraine a couple months into the invasion and is widely credited as a key factor to Ukraine's successful resistance. This early instance, the ability to meaningfully alter the outcome on a battlefield, is a perfect example of how militaries have thought about space for the better part of the last century. Who controls low Earth orbit controls near Earth space. Who controls near Earth space dominates Terra. Who dominates Terra determines the destiny of humankind. The news around tariffs is moving fast, which is the subject of the next video.
All right, that's enough for the video. Thank you for watching. I'm going to put a link of the original video down below. Tell me what you think. Do you care about space? Do you not care? Just let me know. It don't matter. I want to know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of the video. I'll catch you guys on the next one.